Folks, I honestly never thought the channel would hit this milestone, but 100,000 subscribers. Tim's Variety officially hit the big hundo and is rolling 6 digits deep. Let me first say thank you. The channel hit a huge growth spike starting in November of last year, and it's continued into the current day, early March of 2025. No idea how long this is going to last. Most growth spurts on YouTube fizzle out pretty quickly, but it's been a huge boost for a number of reasons that I'm going to get into. In this video, I'm going to be doing a Q&A and going into a fair amount of detail answering some of your questions, way more than I have in the past, going on about the channel, about me personally, my background, random War Thunder crap, and so on. This is going to be a long one. No script, just running my mouth at the questions and seeing what happens. So feel free to put it on 1.25 speed or something if you've got this going in the background while you're grinding in War Thunder, or chill out and enjoy watching the random matches I've included. Either way though, please watch or listen to the whole vid. It really helps out, and if you're here, you're probably a fan of the channel anyway, so just binge it. Okay, so digging right in, I got a whole bunch of questions asking basically how and why I got started on YouTube and with War Thunder specifically. Where to begin? This is going to be a really long answer, but I'll basically give you the entire history of the channel. Now, time has no meaning anymore, so I actually had to go check my stats to find the exact date that this all started. My first upload to YouTube was January 5th, 2021. Basically, right at the height of the pandemic lockdowns and stuff. Well, like a lot of other people, being cooped up inside 24/7 with nowhere to go and nothing to do, I found myself digging up a lot of old games and stuff, and I decided to finally get around to starting a YouTube channel. It's something I'd been kind of tinkering about for a couple of years before that. My very first video upload was actually showing off an exploit I found in Dragon Quest XI as Definitive Edition for grinding infinite mini medals fairly early in the game. The channel started off as Variety Gaming, which is where the name comes from, and it wasn't originally War Thunder focused. In fact, out of my first 20 uploads or so, only one was related to War Thunder, and it got almost nothing for views. My first War Thunder vid that got any traction at all was a fairly long video about the MiG-23M. I saw a ton of players complaining on Reddit and the forums about how the thing wasn't a good dogfighter and it couldn't turn at high speeds, despite being the new hot meta, so I decided to make a vid explaining the history and context of the MiG-23, why it wasn't a good turn fighter, why it shouldn't be, and sharing some general tips on how to fly it in War Thunder. Well, that formula worked pretty well, got a lot of views and some positive feedback, and that's mostly why to this day I still include a little history in my War Thunder reviews, so that folks can understand a little bit about why the vehicle has the weapons and performance that it does, and maybe enjoy the plane a little bit more as a result of actually knowing something about it. The channel finally got noticed by the War Thunder community when I posted my first comprehensive War Thunder radar guide in October of 2021. It got over 250,000 views, and together with the first major update for my radar guide in June of 2022 that got over 350,000 views, it really put my channel on the map, so to speak. It boosted my subscriber count by huge levels, and it gave me the consistent War Thunder viewership I needed in order to apply to the content creator program with Gaijin, and I'll discuss that more a little bit later. I got some questions about it. Anyway, things on the channel were pretty much going routine for a couple of years, following a normal pattern. War Thunder vids on Wednesdays, Skyrim vids on Saturdays, Kerbal Space Program on Fridays, and other random variety gaming stuff just scattered around, like game reviews, random tips, whatever. Unfortunately, I was starting to notice a pattern. All of my War Thunder stuff was performing well, but everything else bombed. Now, without going deep into the weeds, because some of this is a little hard to explain without showing a whole bunch of weird math and stuff, whenever I'd post back-to-back War Thunder vids, the second one would do well, but any War Thunder vid I posted immediately after a variety gaming vid still did okay, but much worse, regardless of the topic. Well, I recognized this was noteworthy, but I didn't really know why it was happening, so I spent a couple of $100 out of pocket in order to get a professional audit done on my channel in early 2023. Together with a couple of experts, we poured over all my stats, looked at the video analytics, and everything else. The conclusion was simple. Non-War Thunder content was seriously dragging down my War Thunder vids, because the vast majority of my subscribers, that's you guys, were just here for War Thunder, and when a vid bombs with subscribers during the first 24 hours, the YouTube algorithm assumes it's garbage, and it doesn't recommend it very far, even among other subscribers. This was kneecapping my variety gaming stuff, and when you have a vid that bombs, YouTube assumes that you might be about to hit a slump, and it doesn't push your next video very far either. So it was having a weird, roller coaster ripple effect. In short, the YouTube algorithms really want your channel to focus on one thing hard. So I made the difficult decision to split off all of my non-War Thunder content, and in July of 2023, I went live with a dedicated variety gaming channel. That channel, Tim's Variety Gaming, has remained tiny, just a couple of thousand subscribers, and it gets very little traction when I post new vids. It also ended up pulling away a surprising amount of the YouTube ad revenue that my channel pulls in. As it turns out that people binge watching on my long-form Skyrim series, my Total War Warhammer stuff, my Kerbal Space Program videos, and so on, were actually generating a lot of the channel's ad money, and most of those viewers did not follow the content onto the new side channel. Most of you probably don't even know that that channel exists, and I'll throw a shameless link in a pinned comment, so go subscribe and binge on everything there. It's not really a big deal. I'm doing okay, financially, and I'll talk about my professional career in a few minutes later. I still do YouTube as a hobby. So, losing half of my channel's ad income wasn't kicking me in the butt as hard as it would if this was my primary source of income. But I'm looking for a way to sort of make an extremely complicated topic very simple, but the way that YouTube calculates its ad revenue and stuff, it really loves longer videos. And one of my hour-long Skyrim videos pulled in a lot more money than a 10-minute long War Thunder review, even if it only got 10% of the total views. Because, YouTube wants you to stay on the platform and stay engaged with the content. So if you're binge watching on a long form series of hour-long videos or something, YouTube charges the advertisers a lot more in order to show you ads on that video than if you're, watching something that's 3 minutes long, because you're not necessarily going to be on the platform for any longer than those 3 minutes. So it's sort of a whole bunch of under the hood crap, and it's a long way to say that splitting off my variety gaming content really helped boost the long-term success of my War Thunder videos, but it cut my ad revenue in half, at least in the short term. Anyway, that pretty much brings us up to the current day. You are watching my original channel right now, which was refocused to be just War Thunder. And all of my variety gaming content is off on a side channel that you may or may not care about, but I'll throw a link in a pinned comment anyway. Super long answer, but that's basically the complete history of the Tim's Variety network of channels as of March 2025. So next, I want to answer a question I get asked at least once a week and go into a little bit more context than I have before. When will I have an affiliate link to get a discount off the Gaijin store and get my decal in the game? This kind of blends into a question about what benefits I get from the content creator program that I'm in right now. Well, I don't know how much of the details I'm supposed to talk about publicly, so forgive me if I'm not giving out like a lot of specific numbers here. The first thing to know is that there are actually two completely different and unrelated programs with Gaijin. The Content Creator Program, which I am in, and the Affiliate Partner Program, which I am not. In order to qualify for the Content Creator Program, it was fairly easy, and my channel qualified a couple of years ago, as I mentioned. Now, as a part of that, I get a small monthly stipend of some free GEs that I spend almost entirely to get SL to pay for crew costs on all the different vehicles I use. And I can also request temporary rentals of vehicles that I don't have. Basically, they work the same as the test drive you get out of, like, the Battle Pass for the first vehicle or, like, out of the War Bond crates. And that's how I'm able to get you content with new vehicles so quickly after the updates drop. I still have to grind them out normally after the rental expires, though, although I can occasionally request and receive small numbers of permanent freebies, but the temporary rentals are the primary benefit I get out of being in the Content Creator Program. Now, the Affiliate Partner Program is something else entirely, and I am not currently a part of it. The requirements are much higher. And literally, the only metric that they look at is views per video within the first couple of months. That really screws channels like mine, where the majority of my channel's views come from my back catalog and my long-form guides, not the weekly reviews that I post, at least not in the first month or two after I post them. You know, reviews I have from like 2 years ago are still getting like a few dozen views per day, which adds up because I've got hundreds of those reviews up now. And overall, the channel stats look really great on paper with hundreds of thousands of views per month, but the per video stats look awful in the short term after I upload something new. The partner program would give me an affiliate link that I could share with you guys to get a discount when you buy GEs and stuff, and also give me a small percentage as a kickback. Plus, you'd be able to get a custom decal in the game, and I'm sure you've seen some from, some of the other War Thunder channels here on YouTube or on Twitch and stuff. If I ever qualify, my decal would just be the coat of arms I use as my channel logo, but maybe a little bit more artistically rendered. Now again, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to talk about the exact numbers and stuff, but I'll say this. Thanks to that huge growth spurt that I mentioned a few minutes ago, the channel does currently meet the requirements for the affiliate partnership. Just barely. But I have to maintain it for at least another month or two before I can apply again. In short, if the weekly reviews keep getting a similar number of views to what they're getting right now within the first month, I'll be able to get you the discount link and the decal maybe sometime kind of soon-ish, because even after I apply and assuming I'm accepted, it takes them a couple of months to process all the stuff. So I hate to be that guy who asks for clicks and stuff, but just make sure you keep watching all the Saturday reviews that I upload. Maybe watch it a few dozen times looped overnight on mute while you're sleeping. I don't know, just saying. But in all seriousness, a channel like mine where I don't clickbait people in with titles like "The One Trick to Win Every Fight Using the F-15." I don't clickbait people in with the big red arrows pointing at random crap on the thumbnail, the big to battle and pictures of the 20 missiles scrolling across the side and all that stuff. I don't do that sort of stuff. My channel is more of a reference library than anything else. At least that's kind of how I interpret, the paradigm and the niche that I've fallen into. So my views initially after posting a vid, as I talked about a few minutes ago, aren't necessarily as strong as a comedy channel is. Over time, they're healthy, but Gaijin doesn't care about that. They only care about how the vids perform during the short term. So if you ever want the channel to qualify for the affiliate partnership program, just keep watching the stuff that I upload on Saturdays. Don't wait till later if you think that there's a chance you're interested in the video. Anyway, next up, something a little bit more lighthearted. I was surprised to get a couple of questions about food. I am sad to say that I am a super picky eater, and part of that is because of how I grew up. You'll hear about that in a few minutes. And part of it is because I am hyperosmic. I have an overdeveloped sense of smell, which really sucks because, well, I don't want to get into it here, but just take my word for it that it sucks. And as a result, I have a very boring palate because a lot of food, I smell it more than I taste it. And a lot of stuff smells a lot worse than it tastes. I'll just leave it at that. My favorite food is basically just cheese pizza or maybe some like nice, warm, fresh homemade bread, like 5 minutes out of the oven. Yeah, that works for me. But for the record, I want to say specifically, this is super important question here I got. Cereal is not a soup. Soup is warm and cereal is cold. If I'm munching down on my BR13 Oops, All Tomcats brand cereal, I want those Fakor 90s to be extra cold, so that is not going to be a soup. Next, I got a few questions about my background outside of gaming and stuff. Well, I've got a day job working as an IT manager for a small, medium kind of sized technology company, and I've got a bachelor's degree in business management with an IT concentration. Which is a fancy way of saying that I minored in IT. I'm also a bit of an economics nerd. I've been an on-again, off-again member of the American Economics Association. Sometimes I just forget to pay my dues on time. But I totally nerd out sometimes reading peer-reviewed economics journals for a weekend. I've also got some graduate credits from the U.S. Air Force Air Command Staff College, but more on that later. In terms of my personal background, that is a much longer story that would take hours. The short version is that I did not have the typical modern American childhood. I was born into abject poverty, which included being homeless multiple times before I was 10 years old. Spent a winter living in a car with my single mom. I've had campground sites as permanent addresses on multiple occasions. We were even out on the street for a couple of weeks at one point. It was not good. I did not have a stable family growing up. My father was only in the picture briefly, and he was an abusive alcoholic. It wasn't a good situation. Things got a bit more stable as I got into like fourth grade, going into middle school and stuff. But, growing up in really harsh poverty like that, it sticks with you. And I've got a lot of scars from it. I mentioned a minute ago being a really picky eater. Part of the problem with that is that I didn't get exposure to a variety of foods, never mind healthy food, while I was in my formative years as a child. I don't think I ever ate lettuce until I was like maybe 10 or 11 years old. And it was disgusting. So I never developed a taste for it. And to this day, as an adult in my 40s, I can't stand lettuce. It makes me gag. So, it really sucks growing up in that sort of an environment. But I got incredibly lucky. Now, according to multiple rounds of standardized testing, I've got an IQ just north of 150. And I was able to build a pretty successful professional career in adult life on my own without any of the advantages that maybe someone else would have been born into with, a stable family life, parents who can afford to help out with college or anything else. Most people in my generation started off a little bit further ahead than I did, but I didn't. I had to rely completely on what I could do upstairs in my head. I don't mention that as some kind of a brag or anything. It's really not. I just got lucky, and I ended up doing okay in adult life, despite starting off with absolutely nothing. Okay, so next up, a little bit more of a fun topic. I got a whole bunch of questions about my real life flying experience. I was able to qualify for some free flying lessons as a teenager through my involvement with the Civil Air Patrol, which I'll get into in a few minutes. And then in my early 20s, I did some more flying lessons, but it's a really expensive hobby, and I never finished my private pilot's license. I've got about 50 hours in my logbook. I'll go look up the exact number and put it up on the screen after the fact. But I just couldn't afford to keep going with it. But, now later in life with more financial stability, I may go back and finish it at some point. I don't know. But, during my time as a student pilot, I still had some interesting experiences. During one of my early lessons, I actually had an electrical fire inside the cockpit of a Cessna 152. It was a pretty surreal moment. We're flying along, everything's fine, then some weird crackling sounds, an odd scent, and before I could finish asking the instructor, "Hey, do you smell that?" there was a loud pop, and the entire cabin flooded with this nasty purple-gray smoke. I mean, very quickly. My instructor was pretty calm about it. He talked me through what to do. We cleared the air in the cockpit, and I actually got to land using emergency light gun signals from the control tower, which is something most pilots never actually get to do their entire career because it's only for emergencies. So that was pretty crazy for like my fourth flying lesson. Then on my first solo flight, I actually had an approach stall on landing, which was pretty scary. One of my issues as a pilot, and you may have even noticed it from watching my War Thunder videos, is that I tend to land low and slow. My approaches are usually below the glide slope. Now, I tried to compensate for that on my first solo, and I was coming in a little higher than felt normal for me. It ended up being right on the glide slope, but my power curve didn't match the new approach, and I ran out of airspeed about 1 meter off the runway. I dropped that Cessna like a bad date for those last couple of feet. But it was a big thud, but I mean, I don't know what to say. Those little planes are invincible. No damage or anything beyond just the shake, after I touched the runway. Just continued with the landing run and everything was fine. Told my instructor about it. I was petrified that I broke the plane and I was going to be like in debt for the rest of my life, paying back this flying school for a Cessna. But nope, no damage at all, nothing. Everything was totally fine. Those little things are invincible. I swear, you could shoot a missile at one of those little things and it would just bounce off. Anyway, that's actually why I fly the number 5 on all of my planes in War Thunder. The Cessna that I did my first solo in was number 5 in the school's fleet of aircraft. On another occasion, I won a contest at the flight school for, I don't even remember what. It was like scoring the highest on a written exam or something. I don't even remember. But I won a few flights in a Mudry Cap 10 stunt plane. Here's a picture of me back when I was, I think, 17 or 18 in the Mudry Cap 10 doing a pre-flight. That's me in the blue outfit in the left-hand seat. And OMG, low-resolution face reveal. Anyway, my flight instructor was this crazy Russian guy who had all kinds of airliners like L-39 jet trainers and other neat stuff in his logbook. And he wasn't reckless, but sometimes he kind of flew by the seat of his pants. Like during one lesson, when he wanted to demonstrate the concept of parasite drag, flying, Cessna 152, he literally opened his door and propped it open with his leg for a minute to show me, in a very practical sense, how we would slowly start to yaw from the asymmetry in the airflow. So flying a stunt plane with that guy was really something else. We did all kinds of hammerhead stalls, like Immelman, split S, all that stuff, weird inverted spins. We even went through a couple of 4 and 5G maneuvers. It was quite an experience. Now, even though I won the couple of stunt plane flights, through like that little competition, it was still supposed to be like normal lessons. We logged them as lessons. It wasn't just a joyride. He did actually have to incorporate at least one like academic thing into each flight. So the first one, he got us into this weird situation as part of an exercise. Now, it would be a whole tangent to go into, but like part of his instructional method was to create puzzles in the air and get the plane into weird situations so that I could figure out how to fix it. If you've ever done any real life flying, he really liked me wearing the hood. But for things like the parasite drag, like propping the door open with his foot, for example, so that I could learn how to counter the parasite yaw with control inputs, things like that. He was really big into like using these puzzle situations as practical exercises. So in the Cap 10, he took that to the extreme. And to demonstrate the idea of minimum controllable airspeed, he had me close my eyes, because we didn't have a hood or anything, but he had me just close my eyes for a couple of minutes. And he got us into this weird brick drop where we had almost no forward airspeed. It was only like 30 knots indicated. But the plane was almost straight and level, but dropping like a brick. And I could tell something was weird. Like, you can feel it. There's that queasy feeling. But when I opened my eyes, he was all, "You're in complete control of airplane. This is not a problem, but fix it quickly." And he pointed to the altimeter, which was just spinning down, spinning down, spinning down, spinning down, even though the plane, like, looking outside and like at the artificial horizon on the dash, on the console, it looked like we were straight and level. The solution was just to apply max power and a little bit of pitch down. It was super easy to recover from, but holy smokes, that was scary as hell for a few moments until I figured out what to do. Anyway, though, one of these questions I wanted to answer specifically asked if I had ever got to fly any of the aircraft in War Thunder. As a pilot, no. But I've been up in some neat stuff, including the KC-135 tanker, both up in the cockpit and hanging out down in the back with the boom operator, refueling some F-16s. That was cool. I've flown up in the front of a medevac version of the Huey, the helicopter. That's another crazy story for some other time. I've flown in a C-12 Huron, one of the very few fixed-wing aircraft operated by the U.S. Army, along with orientation flights and a few other things. But as a bonus and another low-resolution face reveal, here's me as a 16-year-old cadet climbing into an F-15 for a cockpit orientation. No big deal. It's just, just something I do. Anyway, that gets to some questions about my service with the Civil Air Patrol. Now, if you don't know what that is, the super short explanation is that it's the volunteer auxiliary of the U.S. Air Force that provides a whole bunch of non-combat support. Stuff like search and rescue and disaster relief, mostly for state governments, and it runs a cadet program for teenagers. The Wikipedia page about the Civil Air Patrol is fairly accurate, and we always joked that CAP is America's best-kept secret. For my own experience with the organization, I joined as a cadet when I was 15. To say that it changed my life is an understatement. I mentioned growing up in poverty and all that. Yeah, joining the cadets was the first time that I was a part of, anything really, that had any structure and where nobody judged me for being poor. I don't even think anyone even knew. And it was the first time I was able to succeed at something based entirely on my own efforts without feeling like anything was holding me back. I got promoted into the cadet officer ranks, but when I turned 21, they graduated me out into regular adult service as a lieutenant. But while I was still a cadet, though, the local flight school was offering a year's worth of free flying lessons as a scholarship to a local CAP cadet, and my squadron commander picked me for it. I don't know why I got picked specifically, but that's the first thing that got me into a cockpit out in real life. It was also my service as a cadet that got me exposure to some of those cool aircraft I was talking about a few minutes ago, going up in the KC-135 a couple of times, flying up front in the Huey. I mean, it was all through Civil Air Patrol and being able to attend like some of the training and summer activities that the organization hosts for the teenage cadets. As a regular adult member of Civil Air Patrol, I've had a variety of positions and done all sorts of cool stuff. This is one of the topics I could go on for hours about, and I made a community post highlighting some of it a few weeks ago. The short version is that I currently hold the rank of 04 Major. I have served as a squadron commander and a whole bunch of staff positions at the squadron and wing levels. I am a master-rated aerospace education officer, and I've taught classroom instruction for a couple of years. To be clear, it was not flight instruction, as it seems a few people thought. I'm not a certified flight instructor or anything like that. It was academic coursework on aviation topics, mostly for the teenage cadets. I've also got a master rating in cadet programs, and I hold senior ratings in plans and programs and as a historian. So if it seems like I do a pretty good job with some of like the instructional videos and everything I post for War Thunder, I've literally been trained to do it, so go figure. I've also done ground search and rescue, and I've got a whole ton of qualifications there. Most of them are expired, but I've actually done a few real sorties for crashed aircraft up in the mountains and stuff. I coached a drill team of cadets all the way to the national competition. Here's another low-resolution face reveal picture of me back in my prime when I was a captain, sometime around 2007. Through Civil Air Patrol, I've got a bunch of certifications from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, and I've done some graduate-level professional development coursework with the U.S. Air Force Air Command and Staff College. I'm probably gonna officially retire this year, though, as I just don't have the time to be active with it anymore, and plus, I kind of got fat from working a desk for the last 10 years, and it's a bit harder to keep up with some of the physicality than it used to be. Well, speaking of flying a desk, I got a bunch of questions about my political career. I'm not going to get into too much detail here, as I try to keep my gaming and aviation life separate from my time in politics, but I served 5 terms in mid-level elected office here in the United States, higher up than City Council, but lower down than the U.S. Senate. I got started after the 2008 financial collapse really pissed me off, so I made the decision to get more involved and run for office. After filing to run the first time, I won a landslide victory in a swing district. Then I got reelected 4 more times. As a firm believer in term limits, I cut myself off at 5 terms and I did not run for re-election. Maybe again someday for something, but not for now, and for the time being, I'm done. As for OpenPAC's question asking if he can vote for me, maybe you have. Generally, though, that's all I'm comfortable saying, as a lot of my personal info is still listed on like financial disclosure forms and stuff that are public if you know how to look them up. And as for the whole question about like what I think of current events, the whole world is going to shit, dude. This is a weird time to be alive. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, switching gears back to War Thunder stuff. A few questions asking about simulator battles. The short answer is that I don't play sim. I just don't have a good control setup for it, as my physical desk layout and everything isn't really set up very well for a full HOTAS or whatever, and the whole mouse joystick thing just feels completely unnatural for me. When I talk about using a VR headset, believe it or not, I fly AirRB in VR. And yes, I know how much of a disadvantage that is up at the higher tiers, but it's still fun. I started with a first-generation Oculus Rift, but it died on me about a year ago, so now I'm using a MetaQuest 3. Next, a bunch of random questions about in-game vehicles and some related topics about in-game mechanics. A few of these would be like half an hour just on their own, but I'll try to get the simple ones. Do I think such and such planes or features should be added to the game? Yes, for like 90% of it all. Especially for some of the Cold War jets and missiles that they've left out for some reason, like the Soviet K-5 missile family and the American AIM-4 Falcon. Do I think reducing the match size in AirRB would help up at the higher tiers? Yes, but also no. It would be much more fun to fly, I think, and easier to set up small engagements without getting third-partied by 6 people at once, but also harder to get high-scoring matches, since with fewer opponents, the competition against your own team to get kills would be much more fierce and aggressive and reckless than it is now. So, yes, but also no. Do I think 5th generation fighters are coming in 2025? Probably not. My bet is that they're going to slow drip minor upgrades to some of the top tier stuff that's already in the game coming out for most of the year. Get ready for the Eurofighter late edition. The current status of AirRB Enduring Confrontation mode, as far as I know, is that it's been shelved indefinitely, based on somewhat recent forum posts from one of the Gaijin staff. I'm not happy about it, but that's all I've heard, and I don't have any inside information. I also get asked sometimes about the sources I use for the little historical context segments at the beginning of my aircraft reviews. The short answer is books. I've got a personal library of random books about aviation topics and history, along with a bunch of old Janes and Brassey's manuals and some other encyclopedia-type books. Some of them were expensive, so I might as well use them for something, right? Though sometimes a plane will come up, like the BI rocket fighter, for example, that isn't mentioned in any of my usual sources, so I did have to go online to try and find out some info about that one. Even still, I actually ended up ordering a book about it, but the point is that I do occasionally have to try and find reliable info out on the web, which can be difficult. The info I present isn't always perfect. Really, nothing is. But I'd like to think it's generally a hell of a lot more accurate than some random crap you find on a clickbait Facebook page or some Uganda jet fighter Air Force #1.com like web blog, or whatever half-made up AI slop that Dark Skies is putting out these days on YouTube. So I try to find multiple accounts for as much as I can and kind of give you guys my own interpretation of it based on primary sources. The dates and stuff are usually spot on though, regardless of source, as this sort of information's generally easy to verify. Some info is actually kind of hard to verify though. For example, there is a review coming up soon of the ME262A1A, and I had a pretty difficult time finding accurate information about its actual combat record. Now, some of the sources give numbers that are all over the place, or they count the kills differently. So rather than plant my flag on a specific number and say, it was exactly 42 kills, or whatever, I try to mention why it's difficult to pin down, mention that the sources disagree, and give you my own best estimate based on what I could find. Sometimes I also have to leave out a lot of stuff just to keep the segment down under about 2 to 3 minutes, so if I ever don't mention some random bit of trivia that you know about a plane, that's why. I've very likely read the same thing, but I just couldn't include everything because the history segment is 3 minutes, not an hour. Anyway, moving on to some random unsorted questions that didn't really fall into the previous answers. I don't really have a specific favorite band or song, but the playlist I run in my car during my commute to the day job has stuff like Rob Zombie, game soundtracks, opera music, Euro club techno music, and all kinds of other random crap back to back. So pretty much everything except country western or some of that modern R&B that relies on really over-bassed out boom thwack that just sounds uncomfortable to listen to. I hate that sound, and I hate that so much modern R&B music uses that. But generally, though, I like the tempo fast and the drum machine soulless. Other stuff I personally watch on YouTube, believe it or not, most of my YouTube viewing has nothing at all to do with gaming. What planes I fly outside of making content? Well, a little of everything, actually, but my favorite BR range is super low. Rank 1 is my favorite place to unwind. You know, some of those low-tier vehicles, air and ground, are just so goofy and weird that it's hard not to have fun with them, even if you're getting your butt kicked. Other hobbies besides War Thunder? Way too many, and I never seem to have time for most of them anymore. At some point along the way, I've been into model planes, tabletop RPGs like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff, tabletop Warhammer, painting figs, card games like Magic the Gathering, restoring busted retro game consoles and other random light soldering work, flying, of course, politics, books, tinkering with old computers from the 90s, pretty much the whole gambit of nerd hobbies, but again, I really don't have time for most of it these days. Getting old sucks. 1 star, not recommended. Next up, is there a point to grinding War Thunder without having a premium account? Sure, of course. A premium account can speed things up, and I pay for one these days, but I didn't for the first few years of playing, and I still had a great time. Do I have any pets? Sadly, not anymore. I had cats a couple of times, like growing up when I was a teenager and stuff, and I generally like most pets, but I don't currently have any. Do I have any interest in firearms? I do. I've been an off-again, on-again gun owner over the years, mostly rifles, not really into pistols. To give you an idea of the range of my interests there, I've had stuff from a rifled percussion cap black powder muzzleloader up to an MAK-90, which is a modern-ish semi-auto AK-47 variant. I'm just a light enthusiast, though. I enjoy sport shooting and putting holes in paper. Nothing serious. Latina Gaming 88 asks, what's my favorite war crime? Nope. Moving on, do I have a dream car? Sure. I'd pay a significant amount of money to get my hands on a street-legal 1998 Nissan Skyline GTR R34, but here in the US, that's a bit more difficult than it should be. Last question for now asks about a few different things, but the part I want to talk about is what I think the future looks like in War Thunder after they hit the limit of modern stuff they can add to the game. That might come sooner than people expect, as there really isn't a whole lot of stuff left that they can add up at the top tier, which is part of why I mentioned I think they're going to slow drip minor production variants out as new planes and stuff, out over the course of the year. After they're done with that, I can't really say for sure. My gut tells me that they'll try to finally introduce some new game modes, like that new strategic bomber thing that's floating around the rumor mill, or maybe some kind of seasonal World War thing. Maybe they'll refocus more onto like modern and Cold War era naval stuff. I'll tell you, if they get some like World War II submarine battles or like 1960s Cold War destroyers, I will unironically play naval. That has a lot of appeal to me. It's also possible that they might finally get around to revamping some of the outdated 3D models and vehicle interiors, but smart money says that's probably a pretty low bottom tier priority for them. The last thing I want to talk about, other than all the bit by bit Q&A, is kind of the future of the channel and where things might go from here. For example, I get asked sometimes if I'll ever post long-form dedicated vehicle history videos in addition to my usual video reviews. In short, I don't know. I've got a few things brewing at the moment in addition to my usual reviews. For example, I'm finally getting around to making a guide to missile evasion, which is something that a lot of you have been asking for. I've got it scripted. I just need to finish some of the diagrams and get some of the gameplay footage recorded. I'm trying to find the time to post more stuff on my Variety Gaming channel. I've got a dozen or so games that I want to post reviews for over there. I've got a half storyboarded feature-length Skyrim gameplay movie about an insane chef from Tamriel who shows up in Skyrim looking for the perfect flavor, but, goes around and does the various cooking-related content and gets in all kinds of mischief because he's, crazy. I've got a major War Thunder project that I'm working on that's going to take at least 6 months to finish, so no spoilers there. A whole bunch of other stuff cooking, but I honestly just have no idea what schedule I'm going to be able to actually finish this stuff on. Now, in terms specifically of dedicated aircraft history videos, I've thought about that. I've thought about it a lot over the last couple of years. Like doing narrated history of an aircraft like I do for my opening review segment, but for the entire video, 10 to 30 minutes, and using War Thunder game footage. There are a couple of issues that make me hesitate. How would I work the relationship between those videos and my regular reviews? Would I cut the history part out of my regular reviews if I've already got a dedicated history video up about that plane? And if so, how would that impact the performance of my regular vehicle review? Would I run into the problem I used to have with the variety content dragging my War Thunder content down, where the viewers who are here for the history stuff would be competing against viewers that were here for my traditional War Thunder formats? Would I have to split that stuff off onto yet another side channel? I don't have the answers to some of these questions, so in the immediate term, the answer is no. Right now, as I mentioned kind of towards the start of the video earlier on, the channel is really close to being able to get into the affiliate program and get you guys an in-game decal. And being totally real with you here, I'm feeling a pretty huge amount of pressure to make that happen. And I'm worried that if I change my routine or do any kind of a content pivot or something, that it'll sabotage that goal and really set back my progress. Whoa, geez. I've been rambling for a long time now, so I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you for sticking it through all the way to the end. And if you made it this far, you are an absolute champion. Oh, and don't forget, if you want to get that decal in the game, along with a discount link to support the channel and stuff, make sure you watch the new stuff I post within the first month or two, because that's the only metric that Gaijin cares about. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching. I love you all.